Whenever Tucker and I go for a walk at the park, people always comment on his beautiful coat. He is a handsome boy. We bathe him in the Coat Defense Sensitive Skin Shampoo, and it really helps to keep his coat soft, shiny, and fresh. In between, we use the Coat Defense Daily Preventative Powder. This powder acts as a dry shampoo and actually repels dirt, and it eliminates odor. It comes in a refillable, convenient shaker, and Tucker gets so excited when it's time for his brush and his powder. He stays cleaner, fresher, and I'm just a happier dog mama thanks to Coat Defense. Try it out and let me know what you think. You can visit coatdefense.com and receive 15% off your purchase when you use the code MOMMA15. That's MOMMA 15. I don't know about you, but I am a sucker for a country music power ballad, and I can literally remember the early 2000s hit, What I Really Meant to Say, stopping me in my tracks. The song was written and recorded by Cyndi Thomson, a gorgeous young girl from South Georgia with an angelic voice. She quickly rose to the top of the charts, was at the height of a career that anyone would have envied from the outside, and yet behind it all, Cyndi struggled with crippling anxiety. After only one album, she ultimately chose to step away from the music industry. The years that followed brought family, babies, a career as a jewelry designer, and a strengthening and deepening of her faith that she shares in such a beautiful way. Cyndi's in the midst of releasing brand new music, some of her best work yet, and with a full EP due in the late spring, Cyndi has a whole lot more life to share. Let's jump into my conversation with Cyndi Thomson. Cyndi, you're at my house and I'm so excited.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here, and your home is so beautiful. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. I feel like it's going to be both stepping back into like one of my favorite time periods of country music and then looking ahead at what's about to come out for you. And I'm just really excited for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been a journey for sure. And by the way, before we start,
yeah,
I have a 15-year-old who is playing varsity football. And when he found out that you interviewed Patrick Mahomes' mom, it made me the coolest mom today. So thank you for making me cool.
That is so funny. You just never know how kids are going to react. They're either going to be like, Mom, please don't talk about me, on this, because I love to ask you, what your kids got from you, or something like that. But yeah, we had an opportunity. Cooper and I, who helps me produce the podcast, we flew to Dallas, went to his childhood home, got to interview his mom and see all the things. Cooper's hanging out in his childhood bedroom, looking at all the memorabilia. It was crazy.
That's awesome. Well, I'm a football mom now, so I completely understand all of that. I'm learning as I go, but yeah, that's a big one.
Well, let's start there. Tell me about your kids. So 15 and
19.
19. Okay. Mm-hmm. Wow. And so the 15-year-old is probably sophomore in high school, or
he is a freshman.
Oh, he's a freshman. Mm-hmm. Okay. And is that his thing, football?
Yes, it is his thing. It has been his thing for a long time. He's very passionate about it. He's very disciplined. He comes home after football practice and watches film for hours.
Wow.
And, he's pretty serious about it. And anybody that knows him knows that. So,
yeah. Are you a football fan?
Yes, I am of him. And I do love football, but I don't have a team or even being from South Georgia. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Yeah. I like watching it, but I love watching him play.
Oh, I bet. Isn't that so much fun? Just being in the stands and the camaraderie of all the parents and all of that. Yeah.
And to watch him, he's passionate about it. So when your children, I know you've experienced this, when they have a passion and you've been able to kind of help them get there and are doing everything that you can to make it happen, I get emotional sometimes, in the stands just watching him, because it's just a beautiful sight.
Succeed or excel in their passion and what they want to do. Oh my goodness, it's the best.
It's amazing.
That's what I get to talk to moms about on the podcast. It's so much fun.
Yes.
And then tell me about your daughter. She's a little fashionista.
She is very creative. Uh-huh. So she's kind of been for a long time taking clothes that she finds and remakes them into something new, which is kind of what I do with my jewelry line, which is so interesting, but not, I guess. And she works for several stylists in town and brings home lots of clothes and puts them on my dining room table and remakes them for different artists, even Lainey Wilson. She's done some things for her recently. And so she's really, I don't know, we'll see what happens with this, but I'm very proud of her too.
Oh, yeah.
Although my dining room table is full of fabric and sewing machines and pens and scissors. So I don't know when I'm going to get it back.
Yeah, other than that part, yeah. So will you ask her then, like if you have a photo shoot or something coming up, do you ask her opinion about what you wear?
Yes. Honestly, the other day I went to CMT for the first time in over 20 years. I hate saying that out loud, but she was like, here, Mom, this is a top that I found. You have to wear it. And it was the night before, and I had my jeans from Zara. You know, I've got several pair that I love
We
from
just
Zara.
had the jeans talk about like what kind do you even wear these days. So yeah, they're so cute.
And she was right. This top was amazing, and she styled me for CMT. So I think it's in our future.
Yeah, that's so cool. Any music interest in the two? Did they ever think they wanted to or take up an instrument?
Bella has taught herself a lot of instruments.
Really?
Bass, ukulele, guitar, piano. But she doesn't necessarily want to do that. She has a beautiful voice. My son sings amazing, but he will not do it. I've offered him money to be in the school plays, like $50 to $100, which is a lot of money.
Yeah.
He's like, no, Mom. I'm like, you can sing.
The bribing doesn't work, huh?
Doesn't work. Only football for him. So yeah, they both are very musical and very creative, and it's just fun to watch them become who God made them to be.
Oh, I think it's the best part. Yeah. And sometimes in the throes and the busyness of young motherhood, you don't really think about those steps or that process of motherhood. But it's been, I think the most rewarding is just seeing like, you know, I could have never looked at my boys when they were little and just thought about what they're doing now, you know? And so it's so special. So let's go back to your journey to being an artist. You are from South Georgia, and your first stage, like so many people, was the church, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It was the church, and then I only sang just a few times in church. I was deathly afraid. And honestly, I was being bullied at the time at school. And my bully was in the church choir. So I was like, I'm not singing. And she could sing really well. So I don't know. I was just a quiet little girl who wanted to disappear. And so really what got me into music is an interesting story. So I was at my middle school, and it was just really not a good situation. I was just bullied a lot. And I wasn't the only little girl that was bullied by this particular person, but eventually I switched schools and my life changed, and it was really great. And then I went on to junior high school and was just, I don't know, I can't describe it to you, but I was such a shy little girl who didn't want to be seen, or I just wanted to be quiet. And I got into marching band because my sister had a clarinet. My older sister played, and I was like, why don't I try that? I can disappear into this large marching band and get to do music. And so I was a terrible clarinet player. I was last chair. And one day the choir teacher came in, and she said, is Cyndi Thomson in here? And again, I was really afraid because I was naturally in that place in my life after going through that experience. And I didn't want to be called out or seen. I just really wanted to disappear. And for the record, I had amazing parents and amazing sisters who encouraged me at home and gave me confidence, but I just didn't want attention at all. And so the teacher comes in, the choir teacher, and I eventually raised my hand, and she said, come outside with me. I want to talk to you in the hall. And she said, I heard that you can sing. And I was like, I don't know if I can sing. I was so scared. And she took me into the choir room, stood me in front of the piano, in front of all the students and the risers, and said, I want you to sing every scale that I play. And they started out easy, and they got harder and harder and harder. And ironically, my bully was in this class because we had kind of all melded in the town into this one bigger school. And I sang all the scales. And she said, I don't care what you do with that clarinet. That's your chair over there. You're in choir.
Wow.
And then she told my mom and dad, she's a star. And I wasn't really thinking anything like that.
Were you in junior high?
Yes. Mm-hmm. So I was about 13 when all that happened. And I just remember back then there was no American Idol, The Voice. But my sister sang a little bit, and I loved to sing. I knew what it made me feel like inside, but I'd never considered a stage.
Wow.
Ever. that was just, I didn't want any attention. And so it's just interesting how that story unfolded.
And it really speaks to the power of a teacher and the words that they can have, or any adult or mentor in a child's life that speaks into them and says, I see this in you. I think that's just so important.
Well, and also that people, I think, sometimes limit a child's dreams, right? And so for me, I was a dreamer, but she just kind of unlocked this whole idea. And it was God's timing too, because I eventually saw Trisha Yearwood on TV and I thought, that's what I want to do.
Really? You remember it being her?
It was her. It was on a Saturday morning. I was folding clothes on the couch.
Was it She's in Love with the Boy?
Yes, it was.
That's the song for me. That I'm not a singer or performer, but that song, I mean, just how can you not love the art of country music, storytelling, like the whole thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
And she's such a magnificent singer. And, you know, I just remember saying to God, if you take me there, I want to open up for her. I was praying to him about that. And the first phone call I got as a recording artist was to open for Trisha Yearwood.
Wow.
Yes. And I was like, really? So she treated me beautifully. And we just had lunch recently.
Oh, you did?
Yes. And it was just, I can't even put it into words what that means to me in my life. And because there was so much wrapped around that time in my life, you know, being bullied and then being put in a situation where someone said, like you said, I see something in her that she doesn't see in herself, and I'm going to draw it out. I'm going to do that. And so my parents said, okay, you know, and I kind of thought, oh, I think I want to do this. And so my mom and dad were constantly trying to find a place for me to sing, the Elks Lodge, the fairgrounds, the bingo place, you know, because back then there was nothing like there is today. It was just kind of a different way of doing things. I did pageants, and just wherever there was a stage, I got there. My dad was filming it, and then we'd watch it at home, like we do now with game film with my son.
Yeah.
And my mom would be like, look what you're doing with your hands. Or, you know, I would be like, oh, I don't like the way I walked. And just, it was really wise at the time. And we didn't know it, what we were doing for what God had in store, you know, as this country artist coming down the road.
Right, right. And the way that you getting that first phone call, and it was to open for Trisha Yearwood, and you were so specific in your prayer. I mean, it was just like God validated that dream of like, I've got you.
Yes.
Yeah. And have you kind of felt him have you through this whole journey?
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. I believe in a supernatural God. And there have been so many, many stories where he has protected me. He has given me dreams, lots of dreams. Even when I was an artist, I would dream about specific things and I would know the direction to take in specific meetings. I was raised in a really strong Christian home, but my mom knew that God was supernatural. And really, what I love about what she did for me was that, you know, she said, I can't give you Jesus. I can tell you about him, but it's personal and you have to find him on your own. And I was like, well, if he's not coming to supper, I don't think he's real. And I was like, and if he loves me so much, why didn't he call me on the phone? You know, my parents I drove them crazy about this whole thing. But yeah, I think it started then, just that pursuit, because I'm a very curious person. And, you know, he has been everything to me.
Wow.
Just everything. And I am so grateful for my life and so grateful for my story and my family. Oh, I love my family. And just to get to do country music. And then at the height of it all, I'm sure we're going to talk about this, but just to walk away because I knew that I needed to preserve my life. I know it looked crazy to the world. It didn't make any sense. It was what I'd always dreamed of. Everything was perfect and in order and everything that you could dream. But inside, I was dying and I couldn't tell anybody about it. And I knew that there was a pivotal moment where I was like, I have to lay this down. And I knew I would do it again. I just didn't know how. I didn't lay it down to have children or because I was married. I truly walked away because it was something that God and I had a long talk about. It wasn't a rash decision. There was a process to it, and I sought wisdom on it. But ultimately, it was the right thing to do.
Yeah. So this is around, I guess, 2000 when you got your record deal with Capitol, right?
Yes.
And then everything started happening very quickly for you. It's official. I've got all my girlfriends hooked on bare-faced toning pads. I knew they'd be thanking me once they tried these powerhouse treatment pads that are packed with skincare acids, antioxidants, and hydrating ingredients to tackle dullness, rough texture, and breakouts. They enhance the performance of all my other products, and I've noticed my makeup just goes on a little more smoothly. If you're ready to switch up your skincare routine, try pairing them with Overachiever, bare-faced 10-in-1 serum for a simple but effective routine. Don't forget to grab 15% off your first order with the code MOMMA15, that's MOMMA 15 at barefaced.com. You got your publishing deal, you were writing, and then you record a song, What I Really Meant to Say, and 3-week number one. I mean, I'm guessing you could have never imagined what that song was going to do or how well it would be received.
We had no idea. And I had the best label experience. It was truly family and home. They believed in me and my songwriting.
Who was your champion in the music business?
Oh gosh, I had several. Donna Hilley was running Sony Publishing at the time, and she signed me to my deal, and she was like, "I'm your mama," and she would have my parents to dinner when they were coming to town.
Debbie Tenpenny was on her daughter was on the podcast.
Yes.
Mitchell's mom.
Her mama was such a champion and really good to me. Just took me to lunch periodically and would be a mama to me, not just business, but we talked business, and she, would check in with me, and we'd talk.
She cared about you as the person, not the artist necessarily. Yeah.
And then Mike Dungan, the head of the label, was a champion. I mean, he was like a dad to me, and really protective and believed in me. Didn't just, not many artists were writing their own music, and I had spent a lot of time with Tommy James writing that record. Those were my stories. That was where I was from. I had notebooks and journals, and we wrote my world, and we took it to Capitol, and they believed, and that was crazy to me. And then it just, like you said, it just took off. And What I Really Meant to Say wasn't going to originally be the single, but in my heart, I knew that it was an important song. And, it eventually was. And
did you have to fight for it to be the single, or someone else spoke into that?
No, honestly, I remember getting the talks about radio and how difficult that can be at times. And I just thought, okay, well, just take me. Let's go. Let's go. I love my record. I'm my best salesperson. This is me. I'm happy to go into every radio station and do this. And so I had a really good radio experience. But prior to that, the label sent like a sample CD of 5 songs to all the radio stations in the country and asked which one should be the first single.
So they kind of polled them to see,
Which I was like, well, shouldn't you choose? And I was so young and just said whatever I thought, almost like a puppy when we were talking about puppies earlier, like just, well, shouldn't you tell them? Shouldn't you say? And my mom's always said this phrase, walk like you always know where you're going. And I'm like, okay, so we should be doing that. And all the stations called Mike or got back to him and said, I'm gone. This is what we think the single is. Well, I was devastated. I was like, no, it's not.
You wanted it to be the other one.
Yeah. And I didn't write I'm Gone.
Oh.
And I put that on the record because I loved that song. But ultimately, I thought, well, you're promoting me as a writer. And I don't know, this is not my favorite song off the record, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember going home and just praying that night and just crying a whole lot. And it was kind of that first experience with, wow, I have to kind of go with whatever they say. And I'm grateful for this opportunity. But I wanted it to be one of my songs. And within a matter of, I don't know how many days, the majority of those radio stations called back and said, we've changed our mind. It's What I Really Meant to Say.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And that was also one of the first big moments with my faith, where that night where I had prayed and just said, here, God, it's yours. I don't believe this is a single, but I trust you. I had no idea that would be the outcome.
Yeah.
But he holds the hearts of kings in his hand. And so he can turn them whichever way he wants.
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay. And then it did. It went up the chart and kept going up the chart. And I was like, what's happening? You know, I'm a brand new artist. This is so crazy. And we started just going anywhere and everywhere we were asked to go. And I was on different television shows, The Tonight Show, and touring with Jodie Messina and Alan Jackson and Trisha Yearwood and Martina McBride. And it was really fast. And I had really good people around me. I did have a manager who was a little bit more LA. He lived out there, and it's a little bit different way of doing things. And so there was a lot going on, and it's a lot to process. And as you know, with your children and Connor, and just fame is unnatural.
Right.
It's very unnatural, but it's how we handle that. And I'm not saying we're not meant to be. I think God puts us in places to influence and love and do our thing. But yeah, so it was a wild adventure, and it was really beautiful at times too. It was amazing.
What were the first signs for you, either physically or mentally, that it was becoming too much?
I started having panic attacks doing something that I love to do. And I thought something's wrong. The first one was on a Southwest flight. I thought I was dying, literally thought I was dying. I had always been a peaceful person, very jovial, happy about this whole experience. It was just everything I ever wanted. And the pressure of that life is wild and crazy. And I believe you can do it well. And there's a lot of people doing it well now. I think we have a better handle on the mental side of this job. A lot of artists are there's some great communities around them.
We're willing to talk about it. It's not taboo to ask for help, to get support, to go to therapy, those types of things.
And it kind of was back then. And also, I was very quiet about it because I thought if I say anything, it means I'm ungrateful. If I say that I'm hurting, if I say that something's wrong, then it means I don't care about this.
Or I'm not made for this, and everyone's telling me I'm made for this.
Yeah.
And, like some of those names you just mentioned, Mike Dungan, down the hill, you don't want to disappoint people or your family.
No.
Yeah.
It was really crazy. And on the plane, I just remember grabbing my chest, and I was with someone from the label, and I said, something's wrong. And I said, I can't breathe. And she said, oh, you're having a panic attack. She knew. And I said, what do? I feel like I'm dying. And I got up and I thought, I got to get off the plane. And it was just really fast, all of it happening. And I sat down and I just said, God, help me. And I just closed my eyes and I got my breath and I just, made it right. It just became right. I got past it. But I started having them more frequently. I was having night terrors on the tour bus.
Wow.
And so I had this perpetual knot on my forehead because I would just hit it in the bunk, just panicking in the night that I'd missed something, or I didn't do enough, or I discovered very quickly that I was a people pleaser, but in the wrong kind of way. I think it's okay to please people and have that attribute, want to do
unhealthy.
That. It was like, there are so many people, there's so much going on. I don't want to mess this up. I probably couldn't have verbalized that to you at the time, but I know now what was happening with me. I eventually went to a doctor and got on antidepressants. They probably weren't the right thing for me, because eventually I just thought I need a higher dose. It's not working. I'm sad. But I think it altered my mind too in a way that probably wasn't good. It made it worse almost. Now I will say at the time I'd started dating my husband, and I remember kind of casually saying to him, I think I'm going to give this up. And at the time I was on a billboard and I was at the height of everything, this was happening. And in a way, I think I was kind of testing him, but he said, okay, well, just do what you need to do. And I thought, okay, this guy's a good guy, you know.
Yeah, and he was in the band, right? At that time, he was or working with you.
He had worked on a production with me. He wasn't in the band at that time. Just right around the corner, he was in the band. So this was kind of our first date.
Oh, okay.
So I kind of just dropped a bomb on our first date. I'm like, should I date him? And then, I don't know. I didn't share it with him. I didn't share it with my parents. I knew this needed to be my decision. And I didn't want anyone to influence it because I thought on the other side of the decision, I didn't want any guilt or shame for them to feel that based on what I decide. And so I think I just kept running hard. I mean, I was on 3 planes a day sometimes. I was in, there was always things to do, radio stations, visits, lunches. It's just a wild ride. And you're just kind of, there's a calendar that is, you've got people filling it in for you, which is great and fine. But I never said, hey guys, I think something's wrong. I think I need to go talk to somebody. I didn't know. I didn't understand. And so I just kept running, and then I just constantly was praying. And one of the biggest things that was very telling to me was I think I was out with Alan at the time, and my road manager knew I was really sad. And he said, why don't we go to the mall today? You have some downtime. Would you like to go to the mall? And I was like, sure. I mean, I was kind of like a zombie. We went to the mall, and I just sat on a bench outside an Old Navy. And I said, why don't you go walk around? You go get something for your girls. I'm just going to sit here. He was like, you sure? I'm like, I just want to sit by myself. And I remember looking in the Old Navy, looking at a cashier, and I was like, I want to be her. I just want to be her. And I kept saying it on the bench. And then I stopped myself and thought, Cyndi, this isn't right. You want to be you. You're playing a show tonight. You're doing everything that you've dreamed of. And I would kind of come out of that place and keep trucking and doing. And it was confusing because I was loving so much of what I was doing but hurting so deeply inside. It was just a really weird combination of emotions,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Who helped you tell the people that needed to know, the heads of the record labels, the people in your world, that you were going to step back? Or did you, as a young 20-something, have to handle that by yourself?
Well, after a lot of prayer, God gave me an answer. It was very clear. And I was about to get on a flight. I think I was in Colorado. I'd kind of stopped keeping up with the airports. Mm-hmm. I even had friends at certain Starbucks all over the country because I would go get a lot of coffee. Just that's how much you travel. And I just remember being in this airport, and I just had this experience with a sweet elderly Black woman in the airport. And it was this moment with her, maybe I can share with you another time, but where God really used her to speak to me supernaturally. She had no idea what was going on in my life. And she spoke very clearly and answered the prayer I'd been praying and asking God about. A total stranger, different race. She was probably in her 80s.
Wow.
And I remember telling my husband, okay, I'm going to walk away that day in the airport. I knew I had shows to finish and things like that, but I called my lawyer and I shared with him. He had kind of got wind of this through me, like just, I'm thinking about this. I'm having a hard time. So he went with me to meet with Mike Dungan.
Wow. And
I remember Mike standing outside his office, and he looked nervous and excited to see me, but he had no idea what I was coming to tell him, and I had my lawyer with him. So it was like...
So people had not been saying, hey, we're worried about her, from maybe a tour manager, a road manager, people in your camp.
They were only my weight. A lot of them were like, we want you to watch. Like they asked my road manager to make sure I was eating because I was like a 00.
Okay.
I was eating all the time. But I was burning that off just through stress. Mm-hmm. That's how I mean, the
your
stress.
body's working it, even though you may not be physically.
Right.
Wow.
And no one was doing anything to me. I was never mistreated.
Yeah.
Not at radio, not at my label. I was never, I mean, I'm telling you, it was a shock to everyone because, you know, there was nothing it wasn't one thing.
Because people were so surprised. And again, you're at the height of your career, so it's hard for people to wrap their heads around. Did that incite rumors and things about that somebody had done you wrong, or that there was an incident or anything?
No, I think what I found, and it's just human nature, everyone has an opinion about something they're curious about.
Sure.
And sometimes their opinion is worthless. Sometimes it matters at a certain level, or maybe they are close to the answer. I mean, I've done it in my life. Like, I wonder what happened there. You know, I bet. So for me, I heard that it was because I wanted to have children, or that my husband made me leave, or that I was selfish and I didn't care, that I was a prima donna. I read about it. One time there was a radio station that called and said, or I heard that this radio station DJ had said that my husband made me leave the industry. So I got the phone number and called and got in on the line.
You did?
Yes,
like on
I did.
air?
Yes, I did.
Good for you.
And I said, hey, I want to clear this up. I get that we got to figure out that it's a crazy story. Who walks away from something like this?
Right.
But my husband did not make me leave.
Yeah.
I chose to leave.
When you look back now, even if you Google your name, even in preparing for the podcast and our conversation today, just kind of reading some of the articles that came out at the time or now, but even now, if you Google your name, you see words like Cyndi abandoned her music career, you know, things like that. How does that make you feel? It feels dramatic to me.
It is dramatic because I've not ever told my story the way that it needs to be told, you know? So again, it's going back to when you don't understand something, you say stuff maybe that's not true. I've taught my kids that if you don't know about something, you don't talk about it, you know? It's just, I don't know, maturity.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I think it looks as if I abandoned, or it looks as if I didn't care, or maybe it looks as if I couldn't handle it, or maybe there's a beautiful side to it. Maybe that I preserved myself for now, and I have a lot more to say.
That's exactly what I think it is. And I think now with what you and I just talked about, of there being less stigma around people making good choices for their mental health, I think that even your timing in now and saying, I feel good, I'm in a healthy place, my love and passion for what I do has never gone away.
Yes.
But that you took a really brave step as a young girl that needed to make the right choice for her. So I just feel like your message, I feel like as you step back into and put out new music, that your message is even more important now than it ever could have been then.
Wow. Thank you. I feel that I've recently seen some articles of different artists, young artists, talking about the struggle of this life. And it's not that, you know, you're not grateful for it.
Right.
It really is a balancing act of making sure people still see you as Cyndi or who you are. And then also you get to do this other thing that just brings you such life. But people change, and you start to, it's just a hard thing to process. Since I went to a couple sessions of therapy, but now it's like, you know, maintaining your car, getting the oil changed and getting it detailed.
Yeah.
It's important to go in and had I had access to those things and they existed the way they do now, things may have looked different, but I don't want to cheapen the story of what God's done in my life with my family, with my kids, with, I feel like where the real story began was when I walked away from my life, you know?
Okay, where are my pet lovers out there? You know I love to share about Coat Defense. The owners of this company saw a need for safe, effective products to keep your pet's coats clean and healthy. So they created an entire line that we love and use on Tucker. The Daily Preventative Powder acts as a dry shampoo that actually repels dirt and eliminates odor. It has been a game changer. When we switched to their sulfate-free aloe-based sensitive skin shampoo, we noticed a lot less itching, and Tucker now has the softest coat ever. If your dog gets those hot spots, nothing works faster than their Trouble Spot drying paste. You can try any of the Coat Defense products for 15% off when you use the code MOMMA15, MOMMA 15 at coatdefense.com. Your manager wanted to meet with you and you were worried.
Yes, I was thinking, what did I do wrong? Like, it's such a sad thing that I would walk into offices and feel like, who did I let down? It's such a wrong, but that's where I was on antidepressants and all the things. And he said, Cyndi, I've got to talk to you. You care too much about what other people think of you, and it's really not any of your business. And if you make it your business, it will stifle you, and you can't live your life that way.
That sounds like something you could have turned around and told your teenage kids.
Yes. And I have.
I bet.
It's so funny. Raising children, it starts, I think, in elementary, really middle school, where all of the drama begins, and you're just helping them build their character, how to navigate relationships, and be the best mom you can be without, it's my biggest stickler with moms, is making sure you don't hand your baggage to your child to carry because it's too heavy for them.
Ooh, that's good.
And moms do it every day. I've got stuff that I'm still working on in my life, but I don't want to give that to Bella. She deserves her own opportunity to grow into this beautiful girl that God's designed her to be. And I'm just there to steward that and, not ever stifle it with my own fear, regret, unforgiveness, whatever it is. And so, I don't know. It's just, it was a crazy time in my life. And like I said, had I really probably spoken up more, there may have been a little more help, but I think things turned out perfectly the way that they were supposed to.
That's amazing. So tell us about the last 20 years.
Oh my gosh. Where do we begin?
You've been a mama.
Yes.
2 beautiful kids. You have a jewelry line. I want to hear about that. I'm so fascinated with that.
That's a wild story. I started making jewelry on a whim. I thought it was going to be a hobby. I was trying to figure out, what am I doing with my life? I've got a lot of artistic people in my family, but I can't paint or draw. So I was like, gosh, what can I do with my,
You never at any point got like a 9-to-5 job. You didn't go do something else, did you, in between?
No. What's crazy is when I left the industry, like everything abruptly stopped. So it was really quiet. And eventually, my husband had been playing on the road with me. So we both kind of were off the road all of the sudden. And so we both kind of had to figure out, what are we doing? So I'd gotten a resume together. He helped me. And I remember being so sad, because I was like, what are we doing? I've just abruptly stopped our lives. And I went to the mall to get a job and no one would hire me. I couldn't get work.
Wow.
And I remember I was newly pregnant with Bella. And I was trying to get like a job at a makeup counter or something. And I thought, what am I good at? What else can I do? And that was really hard. But I really felt like God was like, I don't want you to have a job. I want you to kind of let me strip away every bit of identities that are not true about who you are. And it's going to be hard and it's going to be rough. And you're going to have to trust me at a new level. And I was like, I'm not interested in that. And he said, nope, I'm going to peel back every layer and we're going to do it really slowly. And so, I eventually, one of the things I ended up doing was I got a camera when Bella was born at Costco. And I don't know how to work this camera. It was a nice Canon camera, but I started taking pictures of her. And then friends were like, will you take pictures of me with my kids? And will you take pictures of our Christmas photos? And so I started a small business, and there was so much in that I'm utilizing now as an artist with, what I'm doing. So I learned how to use Photoshop and Lightroom, and it was such a beautiful experience. But it allowed me to be at home with Bella.
Yeah, and it was a creative outlet. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I did that for a short time, but really no. And then jewelry, gosh, my kids are older, and I was just feeling, I can't describe it to you, but I was like, God, I just want to do something. I just feel like I'm not being creative. And I'd been writing songs kind of randomly.
That never really stopped, right? I
No.
mean, kind of maybe not as a day job as with a publishing company, but you were continuing to write.
Yes, on and off. There were seasons, and then there would be no writing, like long periods. But the jewelry, I was at the beach and with my family, and we went downtown one afternoon to Seaside, and I was like looking at these earrings, and I looked at my husband. I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start making jewelry. And he goes, okay.
Just out of the blue.
Yeah, like I did. I'm going to be a photographer, a family photographer. I've done this my whole life. I'm going to try this, and I figure it out. I'm not always great at it, but I'm like, I want a challenge. I want to figure that out. So I came home and I started going to antique stores and working at my dining room table with all this jewelry, and I started breaking it apart and putting it back together, and then putting pieces together. And I just remember feeling like God was speaking to my heart, like, you see that you're taking things that have been thrown away and discarded, and you're putting them back together and making them new, just like I do with people. And I thought to myself, wow, that is true. You are so smart. So I kept making jewelry, and literally within 2.5 weeks, it was on the red carpet at the CMA Awards.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, please God, don't let that break. Because I didn't know what I was doing, but I love designing. I love taking pieces from all over the world and meshing them together. And eventually my husband looked at me and goes, you're actually kind of good at this. Do you think we should, get an LLC and just start? So we did. We just started, and it's been pretty amazing.
So are you in stores, or is it online? How do people find the Hey Belle
It's
jewelry?
online. You can, all my socials are Hey Belle.
I just realized it's named after your daughter, right?
Well, no.
It's not?
I have a dog named Belle.
It's named after your dog.
And every time I see her, I'm like, hey, Belle. Hey, Belle. And my husband's like, you shouldn't tell anyone that story. You have a son named Hayden and Bella. Hey, Belle. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. They can have it. But the truth is, it's named after my dog. So yeah, it's online, and it's in a few stores, Onyx and Alabaster in downtown Franklin. I have a few things there. And then a store in Knoxville. And there's some other stores I'm speaking with right now, but mostly it's just online. It's one-of-a-kind pieces that I make, and I make a lot for artists and different people. So it's been exciting.
That is so special. I do want to go back and talking about the songwriting. I'd love to know the story behind Life Ain't Always Beautiful, which was recorded by Gary Allan, and has just been one of those songs that I think so many people have been impacted by or could relate to. It's just, one of the special ones.
Well, so Life Ain't Always Beautiful was for my second record Tommy and I were working on. So not a lot of people know this. I've shared it before, but I went back to Capitol and talked to Mike about maybe making a second record when Bella was a toddler. I just remember going in a meeting with him, and I used her as bait. She was in a stroller, and she was really cute. I was like, can I come meet with you? And so Tommy and I began to write for that. And I was driving in that morning thinking, oh my gosh, it's been forever. What do I want to say? And I had the radio on, and there was this love song on that was just so silly. I mean, it was like happy, almost not perfect, right? Mm-hmm. And I thought, that is not true. Love is so different. It can be so hard. And it just got my brain twirling. I was driving through Brentwood, Tennessee on the interstate. I remember when the idea popped in my head, and I thought, life ain't always beautiful. And I went, oh no. Oh, that's it. So I was driving, and I got to Tommy's office. I ran upstairs, or rode the elevator up, and I walked in his office. He was standing behind his piano, and I said, I have a title. Life Ain't Always Beautiful. He goes, but it's a beautiful ride. And he was playing this melody, and I went, that's it. That's the melody. So it didn't take us very long to write it. It was under 2 hours.
Wow, that's fast.
And when we finished, I said, this is not for me. This is for a guy. And he
heard a guy's voice singing.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know it must have been the Lord, but I was like, this is not for me. And he goes, what? It's for your record. Like, we just wrote it for you. It's a really great song. And I'm like, I don't know. I can't describe it to you, but I don't think it's for me. Now, I didn't know I was going to be really leaving the industry. And I had left the industry, not to confuse this whole thing, but it was just kind of like just this moment in time to write, I think. And then I was like, I really can't do this. And so Tommy was kind of frustrated with me, which I understand, because that was such a treasured song.
Yeah, it was special. Mm-hmm.
And so he did a piano vocal of it on a demo session one afternoon, and we turned him in, and Sony got mine, and Arthur Buenahora, who was a song plugger at the time, stayed late and listened to that session and got on the phone. Gary Allen was in the studio right then making the record. He'd already picked his songs, and Arthur said, I have a song for you that I need to
stop the presses. You need to hear this.
I really need you to let me come bring it to you right now. And they said, okay. And it was that story that you hear of the Artie in the studio.
Yeah.
The night it gets driven over, and he said, I want it. And he cut it, and it was meant to be, because at the time his wife had passed, and, it was a really tragic loss, and it filled that void for him in a way. He had some beautiful songs on that record, and I think that was just one of the many songs that was a part of the story and meant to be.
Yeah. And helped him step back into, because he obviously took a break after what he went through with his wife. Okay, so tell me what you're most excited about stepping back in, performing again, getting back on the stage, people hearing the new music from you. I mean, you've got so much more life you've lived to share and to tell about.
I can't believe this is happening. First of all, I'm so excited about doing music again. I didn't know when it would be or how it would happen, but honestly, it was when I was with my daddy. He was passing away, his last day on earth. Each daughter got to go in and be with him. And I just sat down with him and talked about music and just said, I'm sorry I didn't get to play the Opry for you again. And I just knew that, in that moment, I thought if the roles were reversed and that was me and Bella was sitting with me, I wouldn't want to tell her I should have made a record. I regret not going back because of fear or the time span or my age or I don't know what people think about me. And so the next day I just drove around town, my hometown, by myself.
How long ago has this been?
3 years.
3 years.
And I drove around and went down all those roads my world was written off of, the lakes we skinny dipped in, the fields, we had fun in, and just that whole South Georgia life growing up. And I just was talking to God about it. And I was like, I don't want to make a Christian record, although I love you. I want to make a country record. I miss it like crazy. And I don't want to wait anymore. And it was almost like, God needed me to hear myself say that, or I needed to hear myself say it and make the decision, because he was like, okay, that's fine by me. That was what I originally wanted for you anyway.
Right.
So just pick it back up and go. So then I didn't know how it was going to happen. I didn't have a label deal. I didn't have songs. And, after that was like in February. In the fall, my really good friend Natalie Hemby invited me out. She was opening for Chris Stapleton at Wrigley Field, and she needed jewelry. And little did she know that I had been praying all summer, God, just open the doors. I'm not going to get in your way. I need you to make it really clear. And then you bring it together. Because if we get in his way, we really mess things up. Or we force something that was never meant to be.
Right.
So I went with Natalie, and it was a trip of a lifetime. I had not been around anything music industry related in forever. And I was on stage watching Chris Stapleton sing at Wrigley Field. I was so emotional watching her sing. And I was like, no, you're a jewelry maker. You're here with jewelry. You're not a singer. You're here for jewelry. But I kept looking at the crowd, and I just was like, oh, I want this so bad. I want it back. I missed that. I missed the fans were just so enthralled with him and the music and just that feeling of, helping people escape their lives, to just have this moment in time to listen to music that you've written that means so much to you, to have that moment is so powerful. And so I kind of kept it a secret. I hadn't really said anything to Natalie. And the next morning she said something to me about it. She said, I thanked her for the weekend, but she goes, I hope you're not afraid. And I said, afraid of what? She goes, of making a record. You need to make a record.
Wow.
And I said, Natalie, that's crazy that you're saying that. So it was just kind of after that, the spring came. I took my kids to Charleston. I connected with Tommy. He lives there. And I said, do you want to write a record with me? And he said, yeah. I said, I don't have a record deal. I don't have anything. I don't know how I'm going to do it. So that was a Thursday. He flew in on Monday and we wrote, and he kept flying in and we'd write again. And then we'd write with Caitlin Smith and Natalie Hemby and Sam Ellis. And
Wow.
It just started to unfold. And then there was this amazing person that came in the picture and said, I want to help you do this.
Wow.
Because I believe in you. And I was like, okay.
That is awesome. What scares you the most about stepping back out?
This last year has been such a learning experience, and it's a whole new way of, releasing music. You can do it in such a creative way.
Oh, yeah.
It's
you really
wild.
Label's great, but you may not even need that. I mean, you can do so much independently. And, think about the digital world and how that's changed since your album in 2000. Yeah.
It's wild. So I was cliff noting all the while, finding the right producers and finding a team. And, I found an amazing manager. I mean, God brought her straight to me, and we were just like thick as thieves, and she's a precious, precious soul. And, it just started unfolding the way that it should. And I kept walking through the doors. I'm excited about seeing where it all leads. Like, I feel like there's so much ahead and there's this big adventure in front of me. And I've loved watching my kids watch me do this.
Oh, yeah.
Like the Opry, I sang with Vince Gill in January, and it was my first time back. And there were my kids in the audience. They'd never been to the Opry before. I kind of planned that on purpose. Like, what if I'm there one day? And there they were, and they were just watching it, and they'd never seen me on a big stage and in the cool sequin outfit performing, and just was like, wow, that's my mom. And just, it's
There's
so
something
different.
so special about that, though, that they, you're just mom to them.
Yeah.
And then they get to see you shine and see you, fulfill your passion and how that influences or impacts them.
Yes.
Like, that's pretty amazing.
Well, and what I love about it is their whole lives, their dad and I have told them, we want you to dream really big. Don't dream small. And we'll do whatever it takes to get you there. And we'll walk alongside you to do that. And so they knew I had a dream as a young girl. They knew my story and what my parents did for me. And so here I am getting to start again. And I think that's inspiring to them too. Like, it doesn't matter how old you are. Sometimes it does. I feel like I'm tired this time.
Yeah, that's the big difference.
I know
yeah.
I'm really tired, but I'm so excited about what's up ahead. I don't think I have any fears yet. I just want to be, I want to try to go find those first fans, and reach those people and say, I'm back. And, I want to, I'm ready to make this EP. April will be the full EP.
Okay.
That will release singles January, February, and March.
Well, I'm so happy for you, and I love
Thank
your heart
you.
for your kids and motherhood, and your story is unfolding just the way God had planned. I mean, it's so
Thank you.
obvious. And again, you've got more life, more message, really important messages to share.
Thank you.
And because of your story, and you so could have done this kind of comeback. Just with being like, oh, I've been raising my kids. That's what I did. But you're so vulnerable about your story. And I think the fact that now you're going to come back with music, but also your story, aside from the music, is going to impact people.
Thank you. I hope it does. I just want to help people know that if there's ever a time in your life where you need to take inventory and the world goes, hey, that's the craziest idea I've ever heard. You can't do that. Just stay true to what you're feeling, because it's okay to step away from something, that means a whole lot to you, because God's always great at giving it back, and it might look different, it might be packaged differently, but just obedience is really important, I think, especially with the Lord. But, I hope I can encourage people to say it's okay sometimes to just say, I need some time. I need to step away. So,
yeah. Thank you, Cyndi.
Thank you.
It's official. I've got all my girlfriends hooked on bare-face toning pads. I knew they'd be thanking me once they tried these powerhouse treatment pads that are packed with skincare acids, antioxidants, and hydrating ingredients to tackle dullness, rough texture, and breakouts. They enhance the performance of all my other products, and I've noticed my makeup just goes on a little more smoothly. If you're ready to switch up your skincare routine, try pairing them with Overachiever, bare-faced 10-in-1 serum for a simple but effective routine. Don't forget to grab 15% off your first order with the code MOMMA15, that's MOMMA 15, at barefaced.com.